The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
I'm CJ.
And I'm Nisa.
Well, another day in the malaise in between administrations. Everybody's kind of like jockeying for, nobody's saying anything. The lame duck, I don't even know if he's found City Hall again since he wasn't reelected. And our new mayor-elect is with his head buried there preparing for his transition. And now the only thing I guess we got, it's kind of boring, but now we've got the political machinations of the selection of the city council president. The rumors are running rampant.
Whoa, slow down. That doesn't sound boring.
Well, it isn't now. Well, now because now it's like we have there's always drama with the president of the city council lately. The never-ending battle between Joe Camara and our Linda Pereira has gone on, but now the rumor is that, looks like Linda's made a deal with some of the new people. It looks like the rumors out there that Sean Kadim has the votes to become the president of the city council. I don't even remember the last time that a freshman city councilor was the president of the council. In my recollection, I don't remember that. I mean, somebody like Steve Camara, who was previously a council president and was on the council for a while. But I don't know, CJ. We're going back in, it looks like we're going back in time. Do we have, in '95, when they bounced 5 councilors, it was because of the quote, unquote, Portuguese mafia, of which Steve Camara was one of those 5 that was ousted as, so the fact is, are we seeing the beginning of a block vote regime? I don't know. CJ's not commenting now because he's flying around the control room on his chair without his mic. So I'll continue to the dialogue here. Yeah, it appears as though there is, because you need, obviously, CJ, can you hear me? I don't know. He's all, are you ready? Not yet, okay.
I'm back. I'm sorry about that.
All right, so I was saying, I segued into this to say, does it look to you like we're having another situation where we have a block vote regime like we did in '95, before they even sit in the seats of the city council? Do we have already a clique?
Well, Chip, I think it's funny because what I was handling was we're broadcasting live, but we just went live mid-show. For some reason, our Monday show was re-airing, but I find it very interesting because why would Sean Kadim, number one, want to take a job as a city councilor in Fall River? Because he is a town administrator in Seekonk. And now there's also a question of whether or not he can actually serve in both positions, because he'll have to recuse himself on specific deals. But this isn't the first time, as you said, that we've seen this. And when the city council is already locked up before they're even sworn in, you already know that the voice of the people is not going to be heard. And if Sean Kadim becomes the city council president, I don't think the voice of the people will ever be heard, because he has an agenda. We know he has an agenda. His agenda is to run for mayor and to successfully run for mayor. But the people have forgotten that this is the same guy that created the fire department contract, that went overboard on the overtime and created the financial havoc we were in for a short period of time. But he is the messiah for finances. And I have to say very clearly, in very poignantly, that it doesn't surprise me that Linda Pereira would cut a deal to have her votes transferred to somebody as long as she's getting something for it.
The VP.
Okay, exactly.
The
And
VP.
Right, and as long as you're getting something for it, she's fine. But this is the nature of the beast. I mean, it doesn't only happen in Fall River. It happens in Washington, it happens in Boston, and we see it every day. The problem is the people will not step up and say, stop it.
Well, the people did in 95, and I think in 95, those 5 councilors had already been in office for a while. And then they began to act as basically a bloc, and they were referred to as the Portuguese Mafia.
Right.
Because all 5 of them were of Portuguese descent. And, but this is pretty unique, though, because you have a freshman councilor that may be elected as the president, a man who hasn't even occupied a city council chair, never been to a meeting, and is now going to be in charge of the parliamentary overseeing of a meeting.
Well, based upon the previous history of parliamentary proceedings.
Yeah, well, I know they don't have very large shoes to fill as
Exactly.
far as following procedure. But my point is, look, the fact is Linda Pereira was one of the people that elevated Sean Kadim to the status of demigod.
I know.
Because when he was the city administrator, she was one of the loudest worshipers of the Sean Kadim is the genius of the finances. He's great, he's wonderful, he's this, he's that, and he is the architect of the disaster that we had with our budget, because he's the guy that put the budget together. And he said it was sustainable, and it proved it wasn't sustainable. I remember him very vividly going before the city council and saying, the school department budget is not sustainable, but the city side is. And look what happened at the end of that year. When after he was terminated, we found a massive deficit in the budget. So, I mean, obviously it doesn't surprise me politically that Linda Pereira has aligned herself with Sean Kadim. She's one of his biggest fans. I wouldn't be surprised to see her supporting his candidacy for mayor at some point in time. But that's the reality. As you said, it's the reality of politics. There's always some infighting, but when you begin to see them line up like this before they even get in the seats, it's hard to believe that they're not going to be a political council, not a council of the people. But the good news is many of these political councilors, if they prove to be so, but we have to give them time to prove otherwise. But the fact is, some of them, it may be their first term, and it may be their last term, because the people in this city have now begun to wake up. They're making noise already about getting people out, and they haven't even been, they're not even in yet. So, this is good. You kind of get into kind of a funk in between administrations, because there's always that time where this is like Switzerland. Everybody's kind of like doing nothing. Everybody's neutral. Everybody says, oh, well, they've got to transition. They've got to get their feet on the ground and blah, blah, blah. But something, it's already, the cat's out of the bag. The fact is that we've already seen, just the fact that this rumor exists is something for the people to start thinking about and paying attention, because, as I said, it's unprecedented for a freshman councilor to become the president of the city council. And, you may not like Joe Camara's tenure, but the fact is, hey, he did a job, and he did the job to the best of his ability and stuff, and to have him not basically even in the running shows that this is unique, because if anything, you would figure the old guard was lining up to get the presidency, and you would see, I was looking forward to a struggle between the normal, Linda and Joe have been protagonists for a while, but now that's changed. So, what does that say for the future of the city of Fall River and the politics? Will this be a council of the people? I know we have a new bunch of city councilors, but the reality is they're not really that new. I mean, if you look at them, Kadeem was city administrator, he was school committee. You got Pamela Bowes, a neighborhood association person, they were involved. Most of the people who got elected, Steve Camara was a former council president, and you look at most of these people, with the exception of Cabaceres and Cliff Ponte, basically, most of these people have been part of the political landscape in one capacity or another for a very, very long time. So it's going to be,
Well,
it's going to get my attention.
It'll get everyone's attention, especially I think people are taking your word to stay angry and educate themselves on what's going on. So we can only stay hopeful that these people are actually going to start doing their job the way they should.
I don't know, maybe I'm hopeful they won't. It's more fun. I don't know, because it's a lot more fun when we got, I mean, heaven forbid, what are we going to do if the government actually worked for the people? Nobody'd have anything to complain about. It would be like, it's like being in the military.
CJ would be so bored with his life.
Right. We'd all be bored. I mean, everybody, we got so much to complain about from
They'll put us out of a job.
From the federal level all the way down to the local level. There's so much that we have to do. What a revelation it would be. This would be like utopia. Everybody would have to walk around like we're lobotomized. We'd have nothing to complain about.
It's like, what do you mean they're actually teaching our kids in public schools?
That's right. Yeah, heaven forbid. Oh, and speaking of education.
Nice segue.
Nice
I make
segue.
myself comfortable.
Speaking of education, we still have to keep our eyes peeled on the Meg Mayo Brown situation, because who knows what's going to happen there.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because on October 15th, the king of complaint filing, no names, filed an open meeting law violation complaint with the Fall River School Committee. They seem to blanketly use these statements to enter into executive session. And when you read them, you assume from the first part of the statement that they're going into contract negotiations with every single union that is involved with the city school department. And then they add specifics, people's names for contracts for positions. And also, it had come out that it had been said that the performance evaluation of the superintendent could be done in executive session, which it cannot. There is no reason. And I guess they were standing on the opinion by Attorney Bruce Assad that, well, it will affect our ability to negotiate a contract. Well, guess what? The people have a right to know. And then in speaking with several unnamed school committee members, they actually take the vote on the contracts inside the executive session, which is wrong. You've got to vote on the contract in public. You can't just say, okay, we approve the contracts, or people want to know how people voted.
Well, I mean, I just can't not complain about that statement from Bruce Assad. The reality is, the only thing that making her evaluation and doing it publicly will not be the negotiations. It will be the school committee's ability to give someone who's not qualified or whose performance is substandard a contract.
Right.
And that's what it does, because in reality, the collective bargaining law in the state of Massachusetts prohibits the discussion of elements of the contract that you negotiate. Now, her performance evaluation is it's not part of her contract.
Right.
Well, does it affect her ability to negotiate a contract? Yeah, well, if you really suck at your job, I mean, yeah, it does kind of affect your ability to negotiate a high salary, because if you go in and say, the only thing I can make is French fries, but I want $150,000 as a chef, guess what? You're not going to get it.
Right.
But that's got nothing to do with the elements of your contract.
Right.
The thing is that we could talk about the performance of the fire department, and the city could discuss it, and we could discuss the performance overall of the city, but we couldn't discuss what's in the contract, what you're negotiating, the elements of the contract, the working conditions, et cetera, than language while it's being negotiated. There's a legal prohibition, even though politicians have ignored it. As a matter of fact, former Ed Lambert, the former mayor, actually sent a copy of the proposals and the contracts out to every member of our union one time in an attempt to circumvent the bargaining unit and the bargaining committee, of which I was the chairman, and it backfired because he did that. It was illegal, and rather than file an unfair labor practice, I just said, okay, we'll have a meeting and we'll let the men vote on it, and it got voted down like 250 to 3 or something like that. But I mean, everything they do is a lie. I mean, I think you have a timeline on the complaint. I think that shows again that everything the city does, kind of like we're selling schools and they never get sold.
Yeah, well, that's interesting because I sent that complaint out on the 15th, okay? It was at the main post office. Now, the school department is 4 or 5 blocks up the street, and Government Center is right next door. So I will give it that maybe it went out to Providence and came back, and it got here on Saturday. It goes out Friday, it's in Providence, comes back in Florida on Saturday. Both offices are closed. On Monday, the city clerk's office time-stamped it that they received it, which was the 19th. But the school department didn't timestamp it received it until the 22nd. I'm trying to figure out how that happened because it's the same place. I mean, what's going on?
Yeah,
and because of that, they're now asking for a 14-day extension to answer this. And I'm like, are you serious? Why? Because getting a 14-day extension puts them past the school committee meeting and they can do what they want again. Imagine that.
Isn't politics wonderful?
Isn't politics wonderful? But the best thing is, last night I was watching the real estate committee, and I'm listening about the Sylvia School on Hartwell Street, which, remember, Recreation agreed to buy. But they're trying to buy or have bought the old courthouse, 45 Rock Street. And they want to buy the police station. What are you going to do with the Sylvia School? We don't know. We need another 45 days. Excuse me, this has been going on for a year.
Yeah.
And then Joe Macy turns around and says, I'm going to send letters out to every single person who bidded on that if they're still interested in the properties. Because guess what? Fall River, we don't sell the schools. We just let them sit there. That's why the deeds.
We just pretend we sold the schools.
That's why the deeds sit there.
To let the people say, see what we're doing? We've got all these schools, and then nothing ever gets done.
Right.
Just like your letter. Now, didn't you, just for the sake of clarity for our viewers, didn't you call the city clerk, and you asked the city clerk how long it normally took, since she is the receiver of all these documents?
Yes.
And how long does it take her to get it to the individuals concerned? And her answer was the same day?
Same day. So
if she got it on the 19th, it got to the school department on the 19th, so what happened? Bruce wasn't in the office until the 22nd? Is that what? So,
but the thing is that the complaint is sent to the city clerk as a matter of recourse because the city clerk receives all legal service. A complaint was sent to the school department the same day, 2 copies. And I know Allison sent one over because she always sends one over. Okay, so it makes no sense on how the 22nd's the date they received it. But I'm not gonna get into it because guess what? The mailroom was asleep that day. But even I know because I file marriage licenses, I file other things with the city clerk's office. If I send it by mail, usually if I mail it on Friday, on Monday it's received in the office. If I mail it on Monday, usually on Tuesday, sometimes on Wednesday. It's usually a day, no more than 2. But almost a week? Come on, give me a break. It actually was a week because I sent it out on the 15th, so 22, that's a week. That doesn't make any sense. But then again, when you look at the real estate committee, we're bringing part of that into this now. It makes perfect sense to me. The Amazon deed hasn't been recorded yet, okay? But they're starting construction. When the Flint Neighborhood Association bought the Duval School, it took them almost a year to get the deed. They couldn't do anything with it. And then when they started to do something with it, the CPA fund said, "Hey, the heck with you!" They said, "Bye-bye, we're not going to give you anything." So again, we look at the fact that in Fall River, things happen when somebody wants them to, not when they're supposed to. And this is not news. I mean, you've been through this for 20 some odd years, Chip, and so have I.
That's the problem, and that's one of the problems. That's why the people have got to stay angry, get angry, and make sure these people do the jobs. Because if the right person wants it, it gets done within a day. If they want to delay it for political reasons because they want to get that meeting in before they have to answer the complaint, and they can do whatever devious deed they're going to do. Hey, that's alliteration there. Devious deed they're going to do. There's a lot of D's there. But the reality is that it takes forever. If it's the right people, it's done overnight. I mean, how long did it take to get sidewalks and stuff down at down on Duval Street when the right guy bought the property? I mean, they abandoned 4 other projects to get all the trucks down there to make sure everything was good for Tony.
Yeah, well,
and that's the way the city, and that's why the city can't run this way. You wonder why other businesses don't come here? They look at the way business is done in Fall River, and unless you know the right people, you don't get anything done, and it's a nightmare to get through. People have said, I tried to get a permit, and it took forever. I think Carlos is in the booth. Talked to me about a restaurant that was trying to expand a little bit, a successful, one of the few really successful businesses in Fall River, and of course the city was giving them crap. They're making it difficult. And it's like, yeah, but if it's the right guy and they call, they don't care if they shouldn't get a permit, they get a permit. They don't care what happens. They'll get a crane out there in 7 minutes.
If they get a piece of the cake, they'll make it a priority.
That's right. And if you're in the right, and that's the thing, you can't do business that way. The reality is when you go to a lot of these other communities that are very, very successful, they have a streamlined permitting process. They really do, cater to businesses coming in. They give every kind of help they can do. But if you go to Fall River and talk to some people that have attempted to wade through this quagmire of crap that they throw in front of them, they're horrified. I've heard it from numerous people. It's like, Jesus, who was going to come here that chain? And they just basically went, hey, we're not going to come here. Forgot the name of the chain already, but
Golden Corral.
Golden Corral, that's right. It was Golden Corral was scheduled to come, which would have been a good fit for Fall River. Buffet, cheap, that would have been a good fit.
Seafood.
For that. But what happened? It was a horror show. They said we can't deal with these people, and then we wonder.
And then you look at Novo Nordisk. Okay, they tried to come here, and the city laid out the golden carpet for them. For jobs that they couldn't fill here, and they knew that, and they turned around and took that deal down to North Carolina where they planned to be anyhow, and they got a better deal down there. You and I have alluded to this in a previous show and in private conversation that you know what? It's a wonderful thing that you go to Fall River, you get the deal, and then you go to North Carolina or South Carolina or New Jersey and you say, well, I'm going to up your offer with Fall River. And they go, ah!
But they know nobody's got, they realize that. But as I said, let's have some of our viewers, let's send in, get on our emails, get on the Facebook page and stuff, and let's tell us how many you believe that Sean Kadim is going to become the city council president, and we'd like to see if and what you think of him becoming president. I mean, you may be one of the Sean Kadim fan club that thinks he walks on water and that he was the savior of the city of Fall River as he was characterized, but then obviously they forgot that once he left, the next budget that came up had a, $16 million shortfall in it, but he said it was sustainable, and of course now he's going to say that Flanagan was lying, the guy that he worked for, but I find it rather ironic that, like I said, we see all these, we have some, freshman city councilors, and they're already in play politically. So I'm sure that the freshmen are being courted for their votes, and it's going to be an interesting. It's going to be interesting because this story, I think, that we'll have a lot more. We'll have a lot more developments on this story because. We'll see, because we know that Linda and Ray are going to vote like Siamese twins. So, there's not an issue there. And, so that leaves fundamentally all the new councilors. And, I think Steve and Linda go back a ways. They were part of the Portuguese mafia. And, and so there are some alliances that go back a long way, which is one of the things people talk about when we're dealing with this city and this show. That's one of the advantages that we have. We've been in this game a long time and in the city a long time, and we know who used to be aligned with who, and that's it's going to be interesting. Like I said, we've got not only to look at what they do administratively, what the new mayor does, but I want to see what's going on politically. This looks like fun, because I thought it was just going to be the old Linda Joe war, lobbying the new councilors for votes, but now it looks like Sean figures that he's ready to step into the presidency.
Chip and CJ, before we end the show, the U.S. Department of Homeland Security has issued an alert in regards to some UPS uniforms. I'll read it right off my phone, actually. The UPS uniforms government warning in regards to this is there has been a huge purchase of $32,000 worth of the UPS uniforms on eBay over the last 30 days. This could represent a serious threat, as bogus drivers that could be terrorists can drop off anything to anyone with deadly consequences. If you have any questions when a UPS driver appears at your door, they should be able to furnish valid ID. Additionally, if someone with a UPS uniform makes a drop or offer to pick up, make absolutely sure that they are, in fact, a UPS driver. I'm not sure if the resources this is coming from, but it doesn't.
Actually, that happens sometimes also around the holiday season, where people show up in fake uniforms and they actually steal packaging. So it's very interesting. But another thing is, we just had a break-in in Worcester into an armory, and automatic rifles are missing. So this is what's going on. But we can't let terrorism change our way of life.
Just remember one thing: if you see a UPS driver, get your gun out. Tell him and don't ask him. Don't let him get near your house before he shows his ID, because he might just blow the house up.
Yeah.
So just say,
just be safe.
If you have no military experience, I'm going to give you a little military when you stand guard. First thing you do when you see somebody like that, you say, "Halt! Who goes there?" Okay, and then have them identify themselves from a safe distance, and then let them on your property.
There you go. But tonight the team here will be in Worcester with the Donald. We were attempting to bring him here to Fall River to do a special show here for half an hour, but I was notified with the increase in security, it was necessary for them to cancel any other appearances. He's being flown into Worcester, which we kind of knew he would do. But we'll hopefully have a special show for you with the Donald and with the people that are present. Hey, thanks for watching, and sorry about the technical difficulties. Stay angry, people.
Yeah, stay angry, and Donald didn't get delivered in a UPS truck.